our State House studio in Montgomery. I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. The 25th legislative day of this 2024 regular session is in the books. That leaves us with just 5 legislative days remaining that will be spread out over the next 2 or 3 weeks. The House and Senate met this morning and into the afternoon, working through multiple calendars of bills. This is the point in the session when lawmakers need to get any bills they want passed moving in the legislative process before time runs out. We'll start our coverage in the House, which took up controversial legislation aimed at shielding children from inappropriate content. Currently, certain obscenity laws don't apply to public libraries. House Bill 385 from Representative Arnold Mooney would make criminal penalties for distributing obscene materials apply to public libraries and school libraries, but not college libraries. It also clarifies in great detail what qualifies as obscene content. Employees of such facilities would commit a Class C misdemeanor if they fail to remove such content once it is reported. Mooney said his intention is to protect children from violent and pornographic material. Democrats pushed back, arguing that potentially arresting librarians is going too far.
Under existing law, the use of any premise to distribute obscene material to minors is a public nuisance. This bill would further provide that the use of any premises to distribute to minors material that is harmful to minors is a public nuisance. Under existing law, the term sexual conduct is defined. The bill would further provide for the definition of sexual conduct. Under existing law, certain obscenity laws do not apply to public libraries, public school libraries, college libraries, or university libraries, or the employees or agents of any such libraries. This bill would provide that these criminal obscenity laws do not apply to college or university libraries or their employees or agents, but do apply to public libraries, public school libraries, and their employees or agents. This is an effort to protect children. It is not a Democrat bill. It's not a Republican bill. It's a people bill to try to protect children. What this bill does not do, it does not affect the rights of any adult to engage in sexual or gender-related speech or activities in any place where minors are not present and which would otherwise not be defined as obscenity. Adult men and women are free to dress as they choose and act as they choose, so long as it's not in a place where minors are expected and known to be present, such as a public school library or a public library or public school library.
That bill passed and now goes to the Senate. Here are some other notable bills that passed the House today. Senate Bill 240 from Senator Will Barfoot would improve access to mental health care on the local level. That's final passage, and it now goes to the governor. House Bill 415 from Representative Wandalyn Gavan repeals the distressed college loan fund set up by the legislature last year to assist Birmingham Southern College. That school has since announced that it will close this year. The bill goes to the Senate. House Bill 200 from Representative Chris England makes it a felony for a medical examiner to retain a dead person's organs without consent from the family. This has cropped up from some jarring stories with deceased inmates returned to their loved ones with organs missing. That bill now goes to the Senate. And House Bill 165 from Representative Chip Brown. It would require parental consent for children to receive vaccines. It also goes to the Senate. After the House adjourned, we caught up with Speaker Nathaniel Ledbetter on a number of topics. First, he gave an update on where the ethics reform bill is in the process. Weeks ago, the House passed legislation from Representative Matt Simpson making significant revisions to the state's ethics code, but the Senate has yet to take it up.
I think we passed a good ethics reform bill, and I think the Senate's certainly taking a hard look at that, and we'll be meeting with Representative Simpson when we get done here today and kind of see where we're at. You know, it's like you said, we don't have very many days, so we'll be looking next week at probably moving all the sunset bills and doing a general fund, and that gets us in a pretty good position where we need to be. And we got a couple other things we'll be looking to see to get done. One of them being ethics commission and our ethics bill, and kind of see how that goes.
And on the issue of gambling, a 6-member conference committee with House and Senate delegates is still in negotiations about whether or not a compromise can be reached on the different plans passed by the two bodies.
When you go to conference committee, a lot of times you take 2 steps forward and 1 back, and I know the Senate and the House are working together. From my understanding, I've heard some reports of conversations they've had, so we'll see. We'll kind of see how it goes. It's a process, and that's just part of it.
The Speaker also reacted to this week's meeting in which House and Senate Health Committee members invited leaders from Arkansas and North Carolina to talk about their state's experience expanding Medicaid. Talks are ongoing in Alabama about a potential public-private partnership that could leverage Medicaid expansion dollars to close the insurance coverage gap.
I've talked about the gap, and the Medicaid expansion thing is something I've always been opposed to. I think a public-private partnership is something we could look at, and I don't know. I mean, when I say that doesn't mean I support it. It's just like we was talking about with the budgets. I think we got to be open-minded and look at things like that, and either we're for it or we're against it. I talked to the health chairman. He thought it was a good meeting, and he had give me some conversation last night about what they seen, what North Carolina was doing, and what Arkansas is doing. So, I'm going to let him steer that ship. He does a good job chairing the health committee, and I respect his position and what he does. So, we'll listen to him and kind of watch what goes on.
On to the Senate, which took up mostly non-controversial bills, including local bills. Here are a few notable bills that passed the Senate. Senate Bill 309 from Senator Steve Livingston would increase sales tax on products sold at ABC stores. Livingston said it would bring those taxes to the same level of private liquor stores for fairness' sake. It now goes to the House. House Bill 330 from Representative Matt Woods would require Alabama colleges to report any funding they receive from countries of concern. This is stemming from reports of billions of dollars flowing to elite universities from countries like Qatar and China. The bill was amended, so it has to go back to the House. Senate Bill 317 from Senator Roger Smitherman would set specific penalties for members of the clergy convicted of sexual acts with youths under the age of 19 or a protected person under 22. It now goes to the House. And Senate Bill 281 from Senator Tim Melson is dubbed the Second Amendment Financial Privacy Act. It would prohibit financial institutions, including banks or credit card companies, from distinguishing firearm retailers from other retailers in payment and transaction records. That bill now goes to the House. Much of the talk upstairs today was about the education budget that should be on the Senate floor next week. Committee Chairman Arthur Orr said one of the items he's looking at is trying to find funding for a summer feeding program that will help kids avoid going hungry after school lets out. There's lots of interest in finding the money, but it's not that easy now that the budget is almost finished.
The number we're dealing with is $10 to $14 million for the state to manage that program. That's the cost that DHR informs me that they'll incur if we are to do the program. The federal government pays for, my recollection, $80 or $90 million of enhanced SNAP benefits for the summer feeding of children. When you're the second chamber, the concrete begins to set after that first chamber has passed the budget, and things get a little bit more tricky as you go to try to find money to meet the priorities of your members in your second chamber. So finding $10 million, what booby traps are there out there, or landmines that might get triggered as we move resources from one place to the other.
Orr also talked about the prospect of updating the way Alabama calculates its education funding. The legislature passed a joint resolution calling for a study into how the foundation program currently used to allocate education dollars can be updated to be more forward-looking and data-driven. It's something lawmakers are going to work on after this session concludes.
If you follow the trend among the various states, Tennessee being one of the most recent states that has passed student-based funding, and by that I mean we look at the needs of the student in making decisions over a particular base amount. So let's assume Alabama has a $7,000 base student amount. We would be looking at enhancements for students in poverty, students that are English language learners, students that have special needs, or special ed students, students that are gifted, and looking at those categories as to appropriate additional dollars based on those particular needs of the student, because we know that students in high poverty areas have a more difficult time in school and therefore need additional resources devoted to them, be it coaches for the teachers or different tutors, etc., after school sessions, even summer school. So looking at that situation, how do we address the needs of those students in particular, as opposed to just one size fits all based on head count?
And that's what happened in the State House today. The legislature will return on Tuesday for the 26th legislative day, so we truly are in the home stretch. Coming up after the break, I'll be joined by Representative Rex Reynolds of Huntsville. He chairs the House General Fund Budget Committee. We'll talk about what we can expect from the General Fund and his recently filed legislation allocating opioid settlement dollars. We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
In terms of importance and influence, few performers in the history of country music can compare with Hank Williams Sr. Revered by fans drawn to the sincerity of his songs, Hank Williams, during his brief 29 years, was instrumental in turning hillbilly music into country music. The Butler County native became enthralled with music from a young age, playing harmonica and organ, and acquiring his first guitar around the time he was 8 years old. By the end of 1951, Williams had amassed 24 top 10 singles, with 6 reaching #1. A key figure in the development of modern country music, Williams personified the musical genre's shift from a regional, rural phenomenon to nationwide acceptance. His legacy remains alive today, with the heartfelt nature of his performances remaining the benchmark by which country music performers are measured. In April 2010, the Pulitzer Prize Board awarded Williams with a posthumous Special Citation Award.
You're watching Alabama Public Television.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is State Representative Rex Reynolds from Huntsville, Chairman of the House General Fund Budget Committee. Mr. Chairman, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Well, there's lots of things to talk about because I know General Fund is coming up next week, and we'll get to that. But I wanted to talk to you about the bill you filed this week. This is the allocation, the first allocations of the opioid settlement funds that the Attorney General negotiated. Y'all spent months going through meetings and hearings and all this kind of stuff, so you finally have legislation directing the beginning of these funds. Talk about before we get into the specifics, talk about your process in sort of analyzing where these funds needed to go.
Yeah, so as you know, during the 23 session, we passed an HJR creating the Oversight Commission for the Alabama Opioid Settlement Funds distribution. And in that HJR, it challenged that our commission, which has been stood up during that time, to come up with a statewide plan. And our commission has worked throughout the summer, fall and winter. And we've had hours of testimony from those providing treatment, rehab treatment, direct treatment, prevention programs, other educational programs related to opioid abuse. And we've learned a lot. So that statewide plan is out there now. It's for public consumption. We submitted it as a report to the legislature because we didn't want to do it as a bill and have to come back and tweak it. Our challenges may change over the next 5 to 7 years that we have these opioid funds coming in, and we want some flexibility there to do so. And at the same time on Tuesday, when I submitted that plan to the Alabama legislature, then I also dropped legislation to allocate another $30 million. You know, in the 23 session, we did $10 million, and that was with a direct appropriation from the legislature. And we want to come back and do the same thing this time, and it was this one's for $30 million.
Y'all talked really from the beginning about putting this money toward things that were sustainable and really a good use of money, and maybe not setting up programs that can't be funded in perpetuity and things like that.
Well, that's exactly right. And probably heard me say many times publicly during our commission sessions that, you know, this is really not for, this is about one-time monies, one-time treatment that we can sustain. Again, probably 5 to 7 years, depends on how long the funding lasts. But, you know, we just didn't want to really do bricks and mortar. We didn't want to stand up new organizations that would be dependent on funding after, say, you know, year 6 or 7.
Right. All right, so talk about this $30 million. Where are these funds going to go?
Yeah, so we Department of Corrections, we've been doing what we call MAT, medically assisted treatment, to some of the inmates within 6 months of their release. And then we follow that process into the probation and paroles when they're on parole like that, and track them with treatment if needed. And then, of course, 20% of this funding, a little over $20 million, will go to mental health. And that will be a grant process, just like we did the $8.5 million of the 10 last year. And we had a lot of organizations get funding from that. You know, the average grant was around $300,000 to $400,000 out of that program, and that will work similar this time. Outside of that, we also included in that $20 million, we included about $3 million for our 988 suicide line, all which is connected to the abuse of opioids and addictions, unfortunately. And we've got $3 million in there for our veterans for a specific pilot program, I call it the ecosystem of care, and we'll want to put that out there as an RFP and see who in Alabama can offer that care for our veterans. And then finally we had Auburn University. They've already got a pharmacy school that's doing opioid research, opioid training for not only their pharmacists but other physicians, and they're beginning K through 12 programs and beyond for education on the prevention side. And so we allocated them $1 million to expand those programs throughout Alabama. And then to UAB, Birmingham area, they've got a small program in Tuscaloosa and then into Montgomery, and we're adding additional residencies for psychiatry. Those that will assist in some of those that are suffering from addictions, and also, you know, the violent crime that's associated with that.
Just what I'm hearing is prevention, you know, treatment, you know, all around the, you know, abuse of opioids, not just treating it, but preventing it in the future, and education.
That is right. And we put some direct funding in there for statewide marketing. You know, we were surprised when we saw how few of Alabamians really knew about our 988 suicide line. So you'll see some marketing related to that, and then a lot of our education around opioid use. We want to take that message, you know, to our billboards and to our airways, on your airway here, and really get that word out.
Absolutely, yeah, it really is important. And I mean, I've just been amazed really since 988 was created. I guess that was 2020, but really here in the state the last couple of years, because, you know, if you don't know, you don't know. That's and right. So I can see that. Well, look, I know you filed the bill on Tuesday. It's pretty late in the session. Do you think it's going to be able to get through the process?
Well, that's a good point. We had it in our committee in the general fund yesterday and passed it out of the committee, and then so we expect it to be on the calendar on Tuesday, and we're moving it just ahead of the budget, just because we don't want to get caught up in those last few days.
Okay.
And hopefully that'll pass then, and we've got the similar bill moving in the Senate. Chairman Albritton dropped the bill up there as well. And then, you know, starting Tuesday, I got to shift into the budget,
right?
And we feel like we've got that wrapped up and closed it up today, so it'll go to print, if you will, and I anticipate briefing my committee members before Tuesday, and then we'll have a special called meeting at 10:30 on Tuesday, and then that's when the committee will consider the bills.
And just as a reminder to viewers, y'all kind of switch roles every year, right? This year, the general fund started in the Senate, and the education budget started in the House, and y'all always kind of flip back and forth.
We do.
But it doesn't always, I mean, you're not just putting a rubber stamp on it. You've got your changes you might make. How many changes should we expect from what passed through the Senate?
Well, there are. Interesting budget cycle here from what the governor sent over, which was a good, solid bill. It was amended really kind of twice with two different times, substitute bills in the Senate, and so we worked off that, and certainly there are needs from our House members that we wanted to address. I had a priority to go back and make whole our agencies. I feel like that's a priority to fund those. I mean, they're the ones providing service for Alabamians, and so you'll see a pretty considerable change, but not a lot of change to what Chairman Albritton has done. I think we've been able to conserve what he has done, and we certainly had to move some money around, but we will anticipate additional revenues above and beyond what both the governor and the Senate recognized.
Well, it's just been really interesting to see in recent years the general fund, healthy. I mean, in some cases, having surpluses and things. I guess a lot has to do with interest rates and that SSUT, right? The online sales tax. It
is, absolutely. The interest rates are up over 190% on state accounts. So that's something that's why you'll see a lot of one-time expenditures there, and you wouldn't want to create anything that's going to cause reoccurring for future general fund budgets. And yes, SSUT's been up. We saw just a little bit of flattening in the March receipts. But it looks like April's going to rebound back just fine on SSUT. And then our ad valorem taxes, they were up. Insurance premium taxes, we've seen a considerable amount of increase there. So right now the economy's strong, but we've got to be cautious toward those outlining years. Most all the federal dollars related to ARPA will be gone by December of 26. So we really got to start focusing on that time frame.
I know you have also made an emphasis on conserving money and putting money aside in reserve accounts. Are there funds going to those reserve accounts this time?
No, we don't have a single item. Last year we put another $50 million in there, so we've got $150 million in reserve. So we feel pretty good where we're at right now.
That's a pretty good fund.
And then also, if you recall, during the special session, we paid off the debt to the ATF, about $60 million. So that's debt service is now not coming out of the general fund. So I think this legislative body has been very conservative.
Good to have that debt monkey off your back.
It is. That's right. Well, Alabama, the citizens, expected us to pay that back, and we held to that.
It was a promise. It was put before voters, and
that's right.
Promise kept. Well, look, Mr. Chairman, I know you probably want to hit the road back up to Huntsville, but thanks for your time, and we'll be following the general fund when it hits the floor next week.
Very good. Thanks, sir.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
My son's name is Nathan. Nathan is a welder. He enjoys it, loves it. So my plan is that he would graduate from private high school and go on to Auburn University, which is where everyone on his dad's side of the family goes to college. It's very obvious now that I have the ability to step back. He does much better hands-on learning. Nathan had taken a tour at a local career technical school and was very interested in the welding program. My initial reaction about a career technical school was probably the farthest from the truth. I was projecting my thoughts onto him and my expectations onto him, and it really took a lot of mom maturity to step back and just step up and be there for him. After high school, Nathan found a welding job very quickly. I would say within 3 weeks of graduation, he was working for a local contractor. I remember having a conversation with my own mother, and she said, is there really any money in welding? What exactly do welders do? So as a 19-year-old, he's making $47 an hour. Right. So I thought I was raising a CEO, and as it turned out, I was raising a welder. Who knew? Nathan knew.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. Join us tomorrow night for Capital Journal's Week in Review. That's 7:30 here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.